Question 1. During the evaluation of a Cisco ASA Firewall's Access Control List (ACL) implementation for a U.S.-based financial institution, which of the following approaches best aligns with the principle of least privilege and facilitates effective auditing for compliance with relevant U.S. financial regulations? Option A. Implementing a series of specific permit statements for all necessary traffic, followed by a single deny any statement at the end of the ACL. Option B. Creating a single, extensive ACL with numerous complex rules, relying on the implicit deny at the end for all other traffic. Option C. Placing specific deny rules at the beginning of the ACL to block known threats, followed by broad permit any statements to allow all other traffic. Option D. Utilizing broad, permit any statements at the beginning of the ACL to allow all traffic, followed by specific deny rules for known malicious traffic. The correct answer is A. Implementing a series of specific permit statements for all necessary traffic, followed by a single deny any statement at the end of the ACL. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing robust security controls with operational efficiency and user access. The professional must evaluate different approaches to implementing access control lists, ACL, on a Cisco ASA firewall, considering the potential impact on network performance, manageability, and the principle of least privilege. The challenge lies in selecting an approach that is both effective in preventing unauthorized access and practical for ongoing administration, while adhering to security best practices and potentially relevant U.S. regulatory frameworks that emphasize data protection and access control, such as HIPAA or PCI DSS, if applicable to the organization's data. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, granular, and documented method for creating and managing ACLs. This typically means defining specific rules that permit only necessary traffic and deny all other traffic by default. This aligns with the principle of least privilege, a cornerstone of U.S. cybersecurity best practices and often a requirement in regulatory compliance. By explicitly defining what is allowed, the security posture is strengthened and the attack surface is minimized. Furthermore, a well-documented ACL strategy enhances manageability, simplifies troubleshooting, and facilitates audits, which are critical for demonstrating compliance with U.S. regulations. This approach ensures that security policies are clearly understood, consistently applied, and auditable. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to implement overly broad permit any rules at the end of an ACL, followed by specific deny rules. This is a significant security failure, because it allows any traffic not explicitly denied to pass through, directly contradicting the principle of least privilege and creating a wide attack surface. From a U.S. regulatory perspective, this could lead to violations of data protection mandates if sensitive information is exposed. It also makes the ACL difficult to audit and manage, as the implicit allow all is not clearly stated. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on implicit deny at the end of an ACL without explicitly defining all necessary permit rules. While an implicit deny exists, failing to explicitly permit required traffic can lead to legitimate users or services being blocked, causing operational disruption. More critically, it creates ambiguity about what traffic is actually permitted, making it harder to enforce security policies and demonstrate compliance. This lack of explicit control can be problematic when audited against U.S. regulations that require clear demonstration of access controls. A third incorrect approach is to create a single, very long ACL with numerous complex rules without proper organization or documentation. While it might technically achieve the desired security outcome, it severely hampers manageability and increases the risk of misconfiguration. Troubleshooting becomes a nightmare, and the likelihood of introducing unintended security holes during modifications is high. This lack of clear structure and documentation makes it difficult to prove adherence to security best practices and regulatory requirements during an audit. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach ACL implementation by first understanding the specific security requirements and the data being protected. This involves identifying all legitimate traffic flows and then creating explicit permit rules for only that traffic. All other traffic should be implicitly or explicitly denied. Documentation is paramount. Each rule should have a clear comment explaining its purpose. Regular review and auditing of ACLs are essential to ensure they remain effective and compliant with evolving security threats and regulatory landscapes. The decision-making process should prioritize security, followed by manageability and compliance, ensuring that the chosen implementation method supports all three. Question 2. Process analysis reveals that a critical network segment requires enhanced security to protect sensitive data. The IT security team is tasked with implementing these measures. Which of the following approaches best aligns with industry best practices for deploying new security controls in a production environment? Option A. Deploying intrusion prevention systems, access control lists, and network monitoring tools concurrently without prior testing. Option B. Configuring only access control lists to restrict traffic flow to and from the critical segment. Option C. Implementing security controls in a phased manner, beginning with monitoring and logging, followed by access control lists, and then intrusion prevention systems. Option D. Implementing only intrusion prevention systems to actively block threats as they emerge. Correct answer is A. Deploying intrusion prevention systems, access control lists, and network monitoring tools concurrently without prior testing. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational requirements of a business. Challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method to secure a network segment without causing undue disruption or violating established security principles. The need for a phased approach, clear documentation, and adherence to security best practices is paramount. Correct approach analysis. Implementing security controls in a phased manner, starting with monitoring and logging, then moving to access control lists, ACL, for traffic filtering, and finally deploying intrusion prevention systems, IPS, for active threat mitigation, represents best professional practice. This approach allows for granular control, minimizes the risk of unintended service disruption, and provides valuable data for tuning security policies. From a regulatory and compliance perspective, this methodical implementation ensures that security measures are tested and validated before full enforcement, aligning with principles of due diligence and risk management, often implicitly or explicitly required by frameworks like those underpinning CCNA security, which emphasize a structured and controlled deployment of security technologies. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deploying all security controls simultaneously without prior monitoring or phased testing is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adequately assess the potential impact on network operations, which could lead to service outages. Such an approach could violate implicit requirements for operational continuity and risk mitigation. Implementing only access control lists without any form of intrusion detection or prevention overlooks a critical layer of security. This failure to adopt a defense-in-depth strategy leaves the network vulnerable to sophisticated attacks that can bypass static ACLs, potentially leading to breaches that could have regulatory implications depending on the data handled. Focusing solely on intrusion prevention without establishing basic access controls and monitoring is also a flawed approach. It prioritizes reactive measures over foundational security, potentially allowing unauthorized access before the IPS can even detect malicious activity. This lack of foundational security can be seen as a failure to meet basic security standards. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach network security implementation by first understanding the existing network environment and its vulnerabilities through monitoring and analysis. This is followed by the implementation of foundational security controls, such as access control, and then layering more advanced security measures like intrusion prevention. Each step should be documented, tested, and validated to ensure effectiveness and minimize operational impact. This systematic process ensures compliance with security best practices and minimizes the risk of regulatory or ethical breaches. Question 3. System analysis indicates a requirement to isolate a segment of the network containing sensitive financial data from the general user population. The current infrastructure includes a Layer 3 switch and a core router. The goal is to prevent unauthorized access to the sensitive data servers while allowing legitimate business operations. Which implementation strategy best addresses this requirement from a network security perspective? Option A. Install a dedicated firewall appliance between each user workstation and the sensitive data servers, configuring rules to allow only necessary communication. Option B. Configure a single Broad Access Control List, ACL, on the core router that permits all traffic originating from the general user subnet to reach the sensitive data servers while blocking all other traffic. Option C. Deploy a single flat network and rely exclusively on host-based firewalls installed on each individual server and workstation to enforce access policies. Option D. Implement VLAN to segment the sensitive data servers into a dedicated network segment and the general users into another. Apply access control lists, ACL, on the Layer 3 switch to permit only specific, authorized traffic between these VLAN, effectively controlling access to the sensitive data. The correct answer is D. Implement VLAN to segment the sensitive data servers into a dedicated network segment and the general users into another. Apply access control lists, ACL, on the Layer 3 switch to permit only specific, authorized traffic between these VLAN, effectively controlling access to the sensitive data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in network security, balancing the need for robust access control with the operational requirements of a dynamic network environment. The challenge lies in selecting the most effective and compliant method for segmenting sensitive data from general user access, especially when dealing with evolving threats and the need for rapid deployment. The professional must consider not just technical efficacy, but also adherence to security best practices and potential regulatory implications, even if specific regulations are not explicitly stated for this exam's jurisdiction. The underlying principles of data protection and access control are universally recognized in professional IT security. Correct approach analysis. Implementing VLAN virtual local area networks with strict access control lists, ACL, on the Layer 3 switch is the best professional practice in this scenario. VLAN provide network segmentation at Layer 2, effectively isolating traffic. ACL, applied at Layer 3, then act as the gatekeepers, defining precisely which traffic is permitted or denied between these segmented VLAN. This approach offers granular control, is scalable, and aligns with the principle of least privilege, ensuring that only authorized traffic can traverse between the sensitive data VLAN and the general user VLAN. This method is technically sound and supports a robust security posture without introducing unnecessary complexity or performance bottlenecks. Incorrect approach is analysis. Deploying a single flat network and relying solely on host-based firewalls for protection is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach violates the principle of defense in depth and fails to provide adequate network segmentation. If a host within the general user segment is compromised, it could potentially gain unfettered access to the sensitive data, leading to data breaches and noncompliance with data protection principles. This lack of network-level control is professionally unacceptable as it creates a single point of failure. Implementing a firewall between every user workstation and the sensitive data server without VLAN segmentation is also professionally unsound. While it attempts to control access, it creates an unmanageable number of firewall rules and a performance bottleneck. This approach is inefficient, difficult to maintain, and prone to misconfiguration. It fails to leverage network infrastructure capabilities for security and would likely lead to operational issues, potentially impacting data availability and integrity, which are core ethical considerations in IT security. Using a single, broad ACL on the core router to permit all traffic to the sensitive data server from the general user subnet, while blocking all other traffic, is a weak security measure. This approach does not enforce the principle of least privilege. It allows any device within the general user subnet to attempt to communicate with the sensitive data server, even if that communication is not necessary or authorized. This broad permission increases the attack surface and is a failure in granular access control, which is a fundamental ethical responsibility for IT security professionals. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such implementation challenges by first understanding the data sensitivity and the threat landscape. The principle of least privilege should guide all access control decisions. Network segmentation, using technologies like VLAN, is a foundational security control. Subsequently, implementing granular access policies via ACLs or firewall rules between these segments ensures that only necessary and authorized communication occurs. Regular review and auditing of these policies are crucial to maintain security and compliance. The decision-making process should prioritize robust, scalable, and maintainable security solutions that align with industry, best practices, and ethical obligations to protect data. Question 4. Regulatory review indicates a need to implement stricter network segmentation to protect sensitive customer data in accordance with data privacy regulations. A proposed change involves modifying access control lists, ACL, on core network devices to isolate specific data segments. The operations team is pushing for immediate deployment to enable a new customer-facing service that relies on this data. What is the most professionally responsible approach to implementing these ACL changes? Option A. Implement the ACL changes based on the operational team's request without detailed regulatory analysis, assuming that general network security principles will suffice. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of all applicable data privacy regulations. Design ACLs to specifically enforce these mandates, test them rigorously in a lab environment, and then deploy with post-implementation monitoring and auditing. Option C. Deploy the ACL changes immediately to meet the operational deadline, relying on existing security best practices and assuming the new service will not introduce new risks. Option D. Utilize default ACL configurations provided by the network device vendor, as these are generally considered secure and compliant with industry standards. The correct answer is C. Deploy the ACL changes immediately to meet the operational deadline, relying on existing security best practices and assuming the new service will not introduce new risks. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in network security, balancing the need for robust access control with the operational requirements of a dynamic environment. The challenge lies in ensuring that security policies, specifically those related to access control lists, ACL, for network segmentation, are not only technically sound but also compliant with evolving regulatory expectations for data protection and privacy. The pressure to quickly enable new services while maintaining security posture can lead to rushed decisions, increasing the risk of misconfigurations that could have significant compliance implications. The professional challenge is to implement security controls that are effective, auditable, and align with the organization's risk appetite and regulatory obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation and validation process. This begins with a thorough understanding of the regulatory requirements for data access and segmentation, such as those mandated by the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, if patient data is involved, or similar data privacy regulations. The proposed ACL changes should be meticulously designed to enforce these requirements, ensuring that only authorized personnel and systems can access sensitive data segments. Before deployment, a comprehensive testing phase in a lab environment is crucial to verify that the ACLs function as intended, blocking unauthorized access while permitting legitimate traffic. Post-deployment monitoring and auditing are essential to confirm ongoing compliance and detect any deviations or unintended consequences. This methodical approach ensures that security controls are not only technically implemented, but also demonstrably meet regulatory mandates, minimizing the risk of compliance violations and data breaches. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing ACL changes without a clear understanding of the specific regulatory mandates for data access and segmentation is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This could lead to policies that are either too permissive, violating data privacy laws by allowing unauthorized access to sensitive information, or too restrictive, hindering legitimate business operations and potentially violating service-level agreements. Deploying ACLs without thorough testing in a controlled environment is also professionally unacceptable. This increases the likelihood of misconfigurations, such as inadvertently blocking critical business traffic or creating security loopholes, which could result in service disruptions and security incidents, both of which can trigger regulatory scrutiny and penalties. Relying solely on vendor default configurations or outdated security best practices without considering the specific regulatory landscape and organizational context is another critical failure. This approach neglects the unique compliance obligations and risk profile of the organization, potentially leaving it vulnerable to violations and failing to meet the specific security assurances required by regulators. Professional reasoning. Professionals must adopt a risk-based and compliance-driven approach to network security implementations. This involves 1. identifying all applicable regulatory frameworks and understanding their specific requirements related to network access and data protection. 2. Translating these regulatory requirements into concrete security policies and technical controls, such as ACLs. 3. Employing a rigorous testing and validation methodology, including lab simulations and pilot deployments, to ensure the effectiveness and accuracy of the implemented controls. 4. Establishing robust monitoring and auditing mechanisms to continuously verify compliance and identify any security or compliance gaps. This systematic process ensures that security measures are not only technically sound, but also legally and ethically defensible, fostering trust and mitigating organizational risk. Question 5. The analysis reveals that a growing organization is experiencing increased network traffic and a rise in sophisticated cyber threats. To address this, the IT security team is tasked with enhancing the network's security posture, considering the need for both robust protection and operational continuity. Which of the following implementation strategies best aligns with professional best practices for network security? Option A. Implement security controls on an ad hoc basis as new threats are identified, focusing on individual vulnerabilities rather than a holistic network security strategy. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment of the current network infrastructure, identify critical assets and vulnerabilities, and then develop a phased implementation plan for security controls, prioritizing those that address the highest risks, with continuous testing and validation at each stage. Option C. Immediately deploy the most advanced security appliances and software available, assuming that cutting-edge technology will inherently provide the highest level of protection. Option D. Prioritize the implementation of security features that are easiest to deploy and manage, even if they do not directly address the most critical security risks. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment of the current network infrastructure, identify critical assets and vulnerabilities, and then develop a phased implementation plan for security controls, prioritizing those that address the highest risks, with continuous testing and validation at each stage. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational demands of a dynamic business environment. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that security measures, while effective, do not unduly hinder legitimate business processes or introduce unnecessary complexity that could lead to misconfigurations or operational errors. This requires a nuanced understanding of both security principles and business workflows. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and iterative process for security implementation. By starting with a foundational understanding of the existing network and its security posture, and then incrementally introducing and testing security controls, it minimizes disruption and allows for continuous validation. This aligns with the principles of responsible security engineering, which emphasize thorough planning, phased deployment, and ongoing monitoring. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach demonstrates due diligence, ensuring that security measures are implemented in a controlled and verifiable manner, thereby reducing the risk of breaches and maintaining compliance with any applicable data protection or network security regulations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on deploying the latest security technologies without a thorough assessment of the existing environment risks creating security gaps or incompatibilities. This could lead to regulatory noncompliance if the implemented controls fail to meet specific security standards, or if their deployment results in unauthorized access or data exposure. Ethically, it represents a failure to adequately protect the organization's assets and data. Another incorrect approach, which involves implementing security controls in a haphazard or uncoordinated manner, can lead to a fragmented security posture. This increases the likelihood of misconfigurations, which are a significant source of security vulnerabilities. Such an approach would likely violate regulatory requirements for maintaining a secure network and could result in significant ethical breaches if it leads to a security incident. A third incorrect approach, neglecting to involve relevant stakeholders in the security implementation process, can result in solutions that are technically sound but operationally impractical or misunderstood. This can lead to resistance, workarounds that bypass security, and ultimately, a weakened security posture. Professionally, this demonstrates a lack of collaboration and foresight, potentially leading to compliance issues if the implemented security measures are not effectively adopted or maintained. The professional decision-making process should involve a risk-based approach, starting with a comprehensive assessment of the current security landscape, identifying critical assets and potential threats, and then prioritizing security controls based on their effectiveness and impact. Collaboration with business units and IT operations teams is crucial to ensure that security solutions are integrated seamlessly into existing workflows. Continuous monitoring, testing, and adaptation of security measures are essential to maintain an effective and compliant security posture. Question 6. The evaluation methodology shows a scenario where a network administrator needs to secure access to a critical server farm from a dedicated management subnet. The primary goal is to prevent any unauthorized access or lateral movement from other internal network segments while allowing legitimate administrative functions. Which implementation strategy best aligns with the principles of secure network design and operational best practices for this scenario? Option A. Broadly open all ports and protocols from the management subnet to the server farm to ensure seamless administrative access and rely on host-based firewalls on the servers for protection. Option B. Configure the firewall to permit only SSH and HTTPS traffic originating from the management subnet to the server farm's IP addresses, and deny all other traffic from any internal source to the server farm. Option C. Implement a single, very permissive access control list on the firewall that allows all traffic from the management subnet to the server farm, without specific protocol restrictions. Option D. Disable all firewall rules for traffic originating from the management subnet destined for the server farm, assuming that the management subnet itself is inherently secure. Correct answer is B. Configure the firewall to permit only SSH and HTTPS traffic originating from the management subnet to the server farm's IP addresses, and deny all other traffic from any internal source to the server farm. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a common implementation challenge in network security, balancing the need for robust access control with the operational demands of a dynamic environment. In this scenario, the challenge lies in effectively segmenting network traffic to prevent lateral movement of threats, while ensuring legitimate administrative access to critical infrastructure remains unimpeded. The CCNA Security Implementing Cisco Network Security curriculum emphasizes the importance of granular control and the strategic deployment of security technologies. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core security principle of least privilege and defense in depth. By implementing specific access control lists, ACL, on the firewall to permit only necessary administrative protocols, like SSH and HTTPS, from designated management subnets to the server farm, and simultaneously denying all other traffic, it minimizes the attack surface. This aligns with industry best practices and the implicit regulatory expectation of protecting sensitive data and systems from unauthorized access, a fundamental tenet of cybersecurity frameworks. An incorrect approach that involves broadly opening a management port to all internal subnets fails to adhere to the principle of least privilege. This creates a significant security vulnerability, allowing any compromised host within the internal network to potentially attempt administrative access to servers, directly violating the expectation of secure system management and increasing the risk of data breaches or service disruption. Another incorrect approach, such as disabling all firewall rules for the management subnet and relying solely on host-based firewalls, is professionally unacceptable. While host-based firewalls offer a layer of defense, they are not a substitute for network-level segmentation. This approach neglects the network perimeter's role in preventing unauthorized access and lateral movement, leaving the servers exposed to a wider range of internal threats and failing to meet the standard of care expected in network security implementations. A further incorrect approach, which involves implementing a single, overly permissive ACL that allows all traffic from the management subnet to the server farm, also falls short. While it might seem convenient for administration, it lacks the necessary granularity. This broad allowance could inadvertently permit malicious traffic that utilizes legitimate protocols but exploits vulnerabilities, thereby failing to implement effective traffic filtering and control as mandated by secure network design principles. The professional reasoning process for similar situations involves a thorough risk assessment, understanding the business requirements, and applying security best practices. This includes identifying critical assets, defining necessary access, and implementing controls that are both effective and operationally feasible. The decision-making framework should prioritize a layered security approach, the principle of least privilege, and continuous monitoring to adapt to evolving threats and operational needs. Question 7. Implementation of a comprehensive network security strategy for a financial services organization, focusing on protecting sensitive customer data and ensuring continuous service availability, requires a carefully considered approach to deploying security controls. Given the dynamic threat landscape and the critical nature of the services provided, what is the most effective and professionally responsible method for introducing new security measures? Option A. Prioritizing the implementation of a highly restrictive firewall policy across the entire network, blocking all non-essential traffic by default. Option B. Focusing exclusively on securing the network perimeter with a robust firewall, assuming internal threats are less likely. Option C. Immediate deployment of all available advanced threat protection and behavioral analysis tools to ensure maximum security coverage from the outset. Option D. A phased deployment of security controls, beginning with foundational elements like access control lists and intrusion prevention system signatures, followed by validation, and then the introduction of more advanced features. The correct answer is D. A phased deployment of security controls, beginning with foundational elements like access control lists and intrusion prevention system signatures, followed by validation, and then the introduction of more advanced features. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational requirements of a dynamic business environment. The challenge lies in selecting and configuring security features that effectively mitigate threats without introducing unacceptable latency or complexity that could hinder legitimate user access or application performance. Furthermore, the rapid evolution of cyber threats necessitates a proactive and adaptive security posture, making the initial implementation critical for long-term effectiveness. The pressure to deploy quickly while ensuring comprehensive security adds a layer of professional difficulty, requiring careful consideration of trade-offs and potential downstream impacts. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation of security controls, starting with foundational elements like access control lists, ACL, and intrusion prevention system, IPS, signatures that address known vulnerabilities and common attack vectors. This is best professional practice because it allows for granular control and validation at each stage. ACLs provide a fundamental layer of network segmentation and traffic filtering, directly aligning with the principle of least privilege. IPS signatures offer real-time threat detection and prevention, crucial for protecting against active exploits. This methodical approach ensures that each security component is tested and verified before introducing more complex or resource-intensive measures, minimizing the risk of misconfiguration and operational disruption. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this phased approach demonstrates due diligence in protecting sensitive data and maintaining service availability, adhering to principles of responsible security management expected in professional IT environments. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing a broad, all-encompassing security policy with overly restrictive firewall rules and extensive deep packet inspection, DPI, without prior analysis is professionally unacceptable. This approach risks blocking legitimate traffic, leading to service outages and impacting business operations, which can have indirect regulatory implications if critical services are affected. Ethically, it fails to consider the impact on users and the business. Deploying a complex, multi-layered security solution including advanced threat protection and behavioral analysis without first establishing basic network segmentation and access controls is also professionally unsound. This creates a situation where foundational security is weak, making the advanced features less effective and potentially overwhelming to manage. It represents a failure to prioritize security investments and can lead to a false sense of security, increasing the risk of breaches. Focusing solely on perimeter security with a robust firewall, but neglecting internal network segmentation and endpoint security is a significant oversight. This leaves the internal network vulnerable to lateral movement by attackers who breach the perimeter, a common tactic. This approach fails to meet the comprehensive security requirements expected in modern network defense strategies and can be seen as a failure to implement a defense-in-depth strategy, which is a widely accepted best practice. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach network security implementation by first understanding the specific threat landscape and business requirements. This involves a thorough risk assessment to identify critical assets and potential vulnerabilities. The implementation should then follow a structured, phased methodology, prioritizing foundational controls and progressively layering more advanced security measures. Continuous monitoring, testing, and adaptation are essential to maintain an effective security posture. Decision-making should be guided by principles of risk management, operational impact, and adherence to industry best practices and relevant regulatory guidelines, ensuring that security solutions are both effective and sustainable. Question 8. Governance review demonstrates that the newly implemented firewall policy, intended to enhance network security by restricting access to unauthorized services, is causing significant disruption to several critical business applications. The policy was deployed with immediate enforcement across the entire network. What is the most professional and effective approach to rectify this situation while maintaining security integrity? Option A. Implement the new firewall policy with immediate enforcement, but create broad exceptions for all users and applications to minimize disruption. Option B. Place the new firewall policy in monitoring-only mode to analyze traffic patterns and identify legitimate business needs before enforcing restrictions. Option C. Revert the firewall policy to its previous state and initiate a comprehensive review of the new policy's impact on business operations before any further deployment. Option D. Immediately block all traffic that is not explicitly permitted by the new firewall policy to ensure maximum security. The correct answer is C. Revert the firewall policy to its previous state and initiate a comprehensive review of the new policy's impact on business operations before any further deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational requirements of a dynamic business environment. The challenge lies in the potential for security policies, if not carefully designed and implemented, to inadvertently hinder legitimate business operations, leading to user frustration, reduced productivity, and potential workarounds that bypass security altogether. The governance review highlights a gap between policy intent and actual implementation, indicating a need for a more nuanced and adaptive approach to security. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation of the new firewall policy, starting with a monitoring-only mode. This strategy aligns with best professional practices by prioritizing a controlled rollout. It allows the security team to observe the policy's impact on network traffic and user access without immediately enforcing restrictions. This proactive monitoring phase is crucial for identifying potential conflicts with legitimate business applications and workflows before they cause disruption. By analyzing the logs and traffic patterns during this phase, the team can fine-tune the policy, create necessary exceptions, and ensure that critical business functions remain unimpeded. This approach demonstrates a commitment to both security and operational continuity, a key tenet of effective network security management. It also implicitly supports the principle of least privilege by ensuring that only necessary restrictions are applied after thorough validation. Correct approach is analysis. Implementing the policy with immediate enforcement without a prior monitoring phase represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It disregards the potential for disruption to business operations, which could lead to non-compliance with service-level agreements or even contractual obligations if critical business processes are affected. Ethically, it fails to consider the impact on end users and their ability to perform their duties. Implementing the policy with broad, overly permissive exceptions for all users and applications is also professionally unacceptable. This approach undermines the very purpose of the firewall policy, rendering it ineffective and creating a false sense of security. It fails to uphold the principle of least privilege and could lead to vulnerabilities if malicious traffic is allowed to pass through due to the excessive exceptions. This could be seen as a failure to meet the organization's duty of care in protecting its network and data, focusing solely on blocking all traffic that is not explicitly permitted, without a thorough understanding of legitimate business needs, is another flawed approach. While this aligns with a strict interpretation of security, It is professionally irresponsible if it leads to the disruption of essential business operations. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the organization's business context and can lead to significant operational downtime, impacting revenue and reputation. This approach fails to achieve a balance between security and business enablement. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a challenge should adopt a risk-based, iterative approach. The decision-making process should involve 1. Understanding the business context. Thoroughly understanding the organization's critical business processes and applications is paramount. 2. Policy design and validation. Designing security policies that are both effective and practical with a clear understanding of their potential impact. 3. Phased implementation. Utilizing a phased rollout strategy, often starting with monitoring, to validate policy effectiveness and identify potential issues. 4. Continuous monitoring and tuning. Regularly monitoring the network for security events and policy compliance, and being prepared to adjust policies as needed. 5. Communication and collaboration. Maintaining open communication channels with business units to understand their needs and address concerns proactively. This structured approach ensures that security measures are implemented effectively without compromising operational efficiency or business continuity. Question 9. Process analysis reveals that a junior network security engineer, while performing routine network monitoring, has identified a subtle but potentially exploitable configuration weakness in a critical server that could allow unauthorized access to sensitive customer data. The engineer is aware that reporting this could draw negative attention to their team and potentially delay an upcoming product launch that the server is vital for. The engineer has not yet reported this finding. What is the most appropriate course of action for the junior network security engineer? Option A. Immediately document the vulnerability with all supporting evidence and report it through the established internal security incident reporting channels, adhering to company policy. Option B. Attempt to fix the vulnerability independently and quickly to avoid any disruption or negative attention. Option C. Keep the discovery confidential to avoid jeopardizing the product launch and personal standing within the team. Option D. Report the vulnerability directly to an external cybersecurity forum to seek advice and potentially alert the wider community. The correct answer is A. Immediately document the vulnerability with all supporting evidence and report it through the established internal security incident reporting channels, adhering to company policy. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in network security, where a junior engineer discovers a potential vulnerability that, if exploited, could lead to significant data breaches. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to address the vulnerability with the potential negative consequences of reporting it, such as personal repercussions or disruption to ongoing projects. The engineer must navigate organizational politics, understand the severity of the risk, and adhere to established security protocols and reporting procedures. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves meticulously documenting the discovered vulnerability, including its potential impact and any evidence found. This documentation should then be reported through the established internal channels, such as the Security Incident Response Team or a designated manager, following the organization's security policy. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring transparency, accountability, and a structured response to security threats. It also adheres to ethical principles of diligence and responsibility in protecting organizational assets and data. From a U.S. regulatory perspective, this approach supports compliance with frameworks like NIST Cybersecurity Framework and potentially HIPAA if patient data is involved, by promoting proactive risk management and incident reporting. Incorrect approaches analysis. Reporting the vulnerability directly to external parties without internal notification is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. It bypasses established security protocols, potentially alerts malicious actors, and violates organizational policies regarding information disclosure. This could lead to legal repercussions and damage the organization's reputation. Ignoring the vulnerability due to fear of repercussions or believing it is minor is also a critical failure. This demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility and diligence. It exposes the organization to unacceptable risk and could result in severe data breaches, leading to financial penalties and loss of trust. This directly contravenes the principles of proactive security management expected under U.S. cybersecurity regulations. Attempting to fix the vulnerability independently without proper authorization or documentation is risky. While well-intentioned, unauthorized changes can introduce new vulnerabilities, disrupt network operations, and make it difficult to track the root cause of security incidents. This lack of transparency and adherence to change management processes is a failure in professional conduct and can hinder effective incident response and auditing, which are key components of regulatory compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic approach to security incidents. This involves 1. Identification and documentation. Clearly identify and record the issue. 2. Risk assessment. Understand the potential impact. 3. Reporting. Follow established internal procedures for reporting. 4. Collaboration. Work with the appropriate teams for remediation. 5. Verification. Ensure the issue is resolved and no new vulnerabilities are introduced. This structured decision-making process ensures that security issues are handled efficiently, ethically, and in compliance with relevant regulations. Question 10. Strategic planning requires a network administrator to evaluate a request from the marketing department to temporarily disable a specific firewall rule that they claim is hindering a time-sensitive campaign. The administrator knows this rule is in place to prevent a known type of attack. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Immediately disable the firewall rule as requested to ensure the marketing campaign's success, as business needs often take precedence. Option B. Refuse to disable the firewall rule, citing security policy, and inform the marketing department that their campaign cannot proceed as planned. Option C. Initiate the formal change management process, including a risk assessment and documented approval, to evaluate the request and its potential impact on network security and compliance. Option D. Disable the firewall rule temporarily without documenting the change, and re-enable it after the campaign concludes. The correct answer is C. Initiate the formal change management process, including a risk assessment and documented approval, to evaluate the request and its potential impact on network security and compliance. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in network security, where a perceived immediate business need conflicts with established security policies and potential legal/regulatory implications. The challenge lies in balancing the urgency of a business request with the responsibility to uphold security best practices and compliance. The temptation to bypass standard procedures for expediency can lead to significant security vulnerabilities and regulatory noncompliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to established security policies and regulatory frameworks. This involves a formal change management process that includes a thorough risk assessment, impact analysis, and documented approval from relevant stakeholders. This method ensures that any deviation from standard security configurations is understood, authorized, and mitigated, thereby maintaining the integrity of the network and compliance with regulations such as those governing data privacy and network security standards relevant to the CCNA security implementing Cisco network security exams jurisdiction. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and defense in depth, ensuring that security is not compromised for short-term gains. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately implementing the requested configuration without following the established change management process. This bypasses critical security reviews and risk assessments, potentially introducing vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Ethically, this demonstrates a disregard for organizational policy and a failure to uphold professional responsibility for network security. From a regulatory standpoint, this could lead to non-compliance with security standards and data protection laws, as unauthorized changes may violate audit trails and security controls required by regulations. Another incorrect approach is to refuse the request outright without exploring potential solutions or understanding the business context. While maintaining security is paramount, a complete refusal without communication or offering alternatives can hinder business operations and damage interdepartmental relationships. Ethically, this can be seen as uncooperative. While not a direct regulatory violation, it fails to demonstrate the professional judgment required to balance security with business needs, which is often an implicit expectation in professional roles. A third incorrect approach is to implement the change but fail to document it properly. This creates an unknown in the network configuration, making it difficult to troubleshoot future issues and impossible to demonstrate compliance during audits. This is a significant ethical failure as it undermines transparency and accountability. It also poses a direct regulatory risk, as many compliance frameworks require accurate and up-to-date network documentation and audit logs. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with understanding the request and its business justification. This should be followed by a thorough review of existing security policies and relevant regulatory requirements. If the request aligns with or can be adapted to meet these standards, the formal change management process should be initiated. If the request inherently conflicts with security or regulatory requirements, the professional should clearly articulate the risks and reasons for noncompliance, and work collaboratively with stakeholders to find an alternative solution that meets both business and security objectives. This iterative process of assessment, communication, and adherence to policy is crucial for effective and ethical network security management. Question 11. Investigation of a network administrator who discovers unusual outbound traffic patterns from a server that is not authorized to communicate externally and suspects a potential data exfiltration attempt, faces an ethical dilemma when their direct supervisor, who is also their mentor, suggests they try to resolve it quietly to avoid alarming senior management and potentially impacting the team's upcoming performance review. What is the most appropriate course of action for the network administrator to take, adhering to U.S. cybersecurity best practices and ethical principles? Option A. Discuss the suspicious traffic with trusted colleagues outside the official incident response team to gather their opinions before deciding on a course of action. Option B. Immediately report the suspicious traffic to the designated security incident response team or management, following established organizational procedures, regardless of the supervisor's suggestion. Option C. Conceal the suspicious activity and wait to see if it escalates, to avoid causing unnecessary alarm and potential negative repercussions for the team. Option D. Attempt to investigate and resolve the suspicious traffic independently, documenting all steps taken before reporting it to anyone. The correct answer is B. Immediately report the suspicious traffic to the designated security incident response team or management, following established organizational procedures, regardless of the supervisor's suggestion. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge involving a potential security breach and the ethical obligation to report it versus the desire to avoid negative repercussions for the team. The network administrator is caught between their duty to protect the organization's assets and data and the pressure to maintain a positive team image and avoid personal blame. The challenge lies in balancing transparency, accountability, and the potential for internal conflict. Careful judgment is required to determine the most responsible and compliant course of action. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediately reporting the suspicious activity to the designated security incident response team or management, as per organizational policy and best practices for cybersecurity. This aligns with the principles of proactive security and incident management, which are fundamental to network security. In the U.S. regulatory landscape, this aligns with the spirit of various data breach notification laws, e.g., HIPAA for healthcare state-specific laws, which mandate timely reporting of security incidents to allow for mitigation and notification of affected parties. Ethically, it upholds the principle of integrity and responsibility to the organization and its stakeholders. Prompt reporting allows for a swift investigation, containment, and remediation, minimizing potential damage and fulfilling legal and ethical obligations. Incorrect approach is analysis. Attempting to investigate and resolve the issue independently without reporting it first is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. It bypasses established incident response procedures, potentially delaying critical containment efforts and preventing the organization from fulfilling its legal obligations to notify affected parties if a breach has occurred. This could lead to severe legal penalties and reputational damage. Furthermore, it demonstrates a lack of accountability and transparency, undermining trust within the organization. Concealing the suspicious activity or downplaying its significance to avoid negative attention is a direct violation of professional ethics and potentially regulatory requirements. It prioritizes personal or team comfort over the security and integrity of the organization's systems and data. This inaction can allow a minor issue to escalate into a major breach, with far more severe consequences. It also represents a failure to uphold the duty of care owed to the organization and its customers. Seeking advice from colleagues outside the official incident response channel before reporting could inadvertently spread misinformation or compromise the integrity of the investigation. While collaboration is important, it must occur through established and secure channels to ensure that all actions are documented and coordinated appropriately. This approach risks creating a fragmented and potentially ineffective response, and could be seen as an attempt to circumvent proper reporting procedures. Professional reasoning. Professionals in network security must adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes organizational security, compliance, and ethical conduct. This framework involves 1. Recognizing and understanding potential security threats. 2. Adhering strictly to established organizational policies and procedures for incident reporting and response. 3. Understanding relevant U.S. regulatory requirements for data security and breach notification. 4. Acting with integrity and transparency, even when faced with potential negative consequences. 5. Escalating issues through the appropriate channels to ensure a coordinated and effective response. The primary goal is always to protect the organization and its stakeholders. Question 12. What factors determine the most appropriate course of action when a network security professional discovers a critical, unpatched vulnerability in a widely used third-party software component within their organization's network, which could lead to a significant data breach if exploited by external attackers? Option A. Attempting to exploit the vulnerability to demonstrate its severity to management and force immediate action. Option B. Ignoring the vulnerability and hoping it is not discovered or exploited by attackers, assuming the vendor will eventually release a patch. Option C. Publicly disclosing the vulnerability on security forums and social media to alert the broader community and pressure the vendor for a faster fix. Option D. Immediately reporting the vulnerability through the organization's established incident response and vulnerability management channels to facilitate prompt internal remediation. The correct answer is D. Immediately reporting the vulnerability through the organization's established incident response and vulnerability management channels to facilitate prompt internal remediation. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in network security, where a security professional discovers a vulnerability that, if exploited, could lead to significant data breaches. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to protect the organization's assets with the potential consequences of disclosing the vulnerability, especially if it could be exploited by malicious actors before a fix is available. The professional must consider their duty to their employer, the potential harm to users or customers, and their professional integrity. The correct approach involves a structured, responsible disclosure process. This means immediately reporting the vulnerability internally through established channels, such as a security team or management. The goal is to enable the organization to remediate the vulnerability swiftly and securely, minimizing risk. This aligns with professional ethical codes that prioritize the protection of systems and data, and it also adheres to best practices in vulnerability management, which emphasize internal reporting and remediation before external disclosure. This approach demonstrates a commitment to the organization's security posture and responsible stewardship of sensitive information. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disclose the vulnerability publicly without internal notification. This action, while seemingly transparent, creates a significant risk. It alerts malicious actors to a weakness that the organization may not yet be able to fix, potentially leading to exploitation and data breaches. This failure to follow responsible disclosure protocols violates ethical obligations to protect the organization and its stakeholders. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the vulnerability, hoping it goes unnoticed. This is a dereliction of duty and a direct violation of professional responsibility, as it knowingly leaves systems exposed to potential attack, which could have severe legal and financial repercussions for the organization. Finally, attempting to exploit the vulnerability for personal gain or to prove a point is not only unethical but also illegal, constituting unauthorized access and potential data theft. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the organization's incident response and vulnerability management policies. If these are unclear, they should seek guidance from their direct supervisor or the designated security lead. The decision-making process should prioritize risk assessment, understanding the severity of the vulnerability, the likelihood of exploitation, and the potential impact. The primary objective is always to mitigate risk to the organization and its users through authorized and responsible channels. Question 13. When evaluating a critical network outage caused by a suspected zero-day exploit, and under immense pressure from management to restore services immediately, what is the most responsible course of action for a network security professional? Option A. Grant elevated administrative privileges to a wider group of IT staff to expedite troubleshooting and service restoration, with the understanding that these privileges will be revoked later. Option B. Restore services using the last known good configuration without investigating the root cause, assuming the issue was a transient network anomaly. Option C. Temporarily disable all non-essential security monitoring and logging to free up resources and expedite the restoration of core services, with a plan to re-enable them once the immediate crisis is over. Option D. Implement a secure, albeit temporary, workaround that isolates the affected systems and limits their exposure, while simultaneously initiating a thorough investigation and remediation plan and documenting all steps taken. The correct answer is C. Temporarily disable all non-essential security monitoring and logging to free up resources and expedite the restoration of core services, with a plan to re-enable them once the immediate crisis is over. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in network security, where business objectives may conflict with security best practices and potentially regulatory compliance. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for operational continuity with the long-term risks of security vulnerabilities and the potential for data breaches. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise security. The correct approach involves prioritizing security and compliance even under pressure. This means conducting a thorough risk assessment, implementing temporary but secure workarounds, and documenting all actions and decisions. This aligns with the principles of responsible data handling and network security, which are often underpinned by regulatory frameworks that mandate due diligence and risk mitigation. For example, in the U.S., regulations like HIPAA for healthcare or PCI DSS for payment card industry require organizations to implement appropriate security measures to protect sensitive data, and failing to do so can result in significant penalties. Adhering to these principles demonstrates a commitment to protecting sensitive information and maintaining the integrity of the network, which is a core tenet of professional cybersecurity practice. An incorrect approach would be to bypass security controls to restore service immediately. This could involve disabling intrusion detection systems, using weak authentication methods, or failing to patch the vulnerability before bringing systems back online. Such actions directly violate the spirit and often the letter of security regulations and ethical guidelines. For instance, disabling security monitoring could be seen as a failure to exercise due diligence, a requirement in many data protection laws. Using weak authentication would be a clear violation of security best practices and could expose sensitive data, leading to regulatory fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach would be to restore service without proper documentation or a plan for remediation. This lack of accountability makes it difficult to track the incident, learn from it, and ensure that the vulnerability is permanently addressed, increasing the risk of future attacks and hindering compliance audits. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the full scope of the security incident and its potential impact. This involves engaging the incident response team, performing a rapid risk assessment, and identifying the most secure and compliant path to resolution. Communication with stakeholders, including management and legal counsel, is crucial to ensure that decisions are informed and aligned with organizational policies and regulatory obligations. The decision-making process should be guided by a framework that prioritizes security, compliance, and transparency, even when faced with operational pressures. Question 14. The assessment process reveals that the current security incident response workflow is experiencing significant delays in threat containment, leading to extended periods of vulnerability. While the security team has access to advanced threat detection tools, the process of escalating alerts, verifying threats, and implementing mitigation actions is proving to be a bottleneck. Which of the following approaches would best optimize this process while maintaining a strong security posture? Option A. Implement a tiered alert system that automatically prioritizes and routes confirmed threats to specialized response teams based on severity and type, coupled with predefined playbooks for common incident scenarios. Option B. Focus solely on acquiring more advanced threat intelligence feeds, assuming that better data will inherently resolve the workflow delays without altering the current response procedures. Option C. Temporarily disable certain security monitoring features that are perceived to be generating a high volume of alerts in order to reduce the immediate workload on the response team. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of all existing security policies and procedures, making broad, sweeping changes to streamline every aspect of the incident response lifecycle without prior testing. Correct answer is A. Implement a tiered alert system that automatically prioritizes and routes confirmed threats to specialized response teams based on severity and type, coupled with predefined playbooks for common incident scenarios. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in network security, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational demands of a dynamic network environment. Specifically, the scenario highlights the tension between implementing comprehensive security policies and ensuring that these policies do not unduly hinder legitimate network operations or the ability of security personnel to respond effectively to incidents. This requires a nuanced understanding of how security technologies and processes interact with the overall network infrastructure and the business objectives they support. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and data-driven methodology for evaluating and optimizing security processes. By focusing on identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies through performance metrics and user feedback, it ensures that security measures are not only effective, but also practical and sustainable. This aligns with the principles of continuous improvement and risk management, which are fundamental to maintaining a secure and operational network. Furthermore, this approach is consistent with the general guidance found in IT best practices and frameworks that emphasize efficiency and effectiveness in security operations, without specific regulatory mandates being the primary driver in this context. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on implementing the latest security technologies without considering their integration or impact on existing workflows represents a failure in professional judgment. This can lead to a fragmented security posture, increased operational overhead, and potential security gaps if the new technologies are not properly configured or managed. Ethically, it can be seen as a failure to adequately protect the organization's assets by investing in solutions that are not optimally deployed. Another incorrect approach that involves making ad hoc changes to security configurations based on anecdotal evidence or immediate pressure without a structured evaluation is professionally unsound. This can introduce unintended vulnerabilities, disrupt network services, and make it difficult to troubleshoot issues. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adhere to established change management procedures, which are critical for maintaining system integrity and security. A professional reasoning framework for such situations involves a cyclical process of assessment, planning, implementation, and monitoring. When faced with challenges in security process optimization, professionals should first clearly define the problem and its impact. Then, they should gather data and analyze current processes to identify root causes and potential solutions. Solutions should be evaluated based on their effectiveness, efficiency, and impact on operations. Implementation should follow a structured plan, including testing and rollback procedures. Finally, continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential to ensure ongoing optimization and adaptation to evolving threats and operational needs. Question 15. Governance review demonstrates that current network security change management processes are overly complex, leading to delays in critical security updates and a backlog of unaddressed vulnerabilities. Which of the following approaches best optimizes these processes while maintaining a strong security posture? Option A. Establish a dedicated Security Operations Center, SOC, to manage all security-related changes, bypassing standard IT change control procedures for faster deployment. Option B. Automate the deployment of all security configurations without any human oversight or validation to ensure maximum speed and efficiency. Option C. Implement a risk-based tiered approval system for security changes, where the level of scrutiny and approval required is directly proportional to the potential impact and criticality of the change. Option D. Mandate that all security patches be applied immediately upon release, regardless of potential operational impact or testing requirements, to eliminate all vulnerabilities. The correct answer is A. Establish a dedicated Security Operations Center, SOC, to manage all security-related changes, bypassing standard IT change control procedures for faster deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational demands of a dynamic business environment. The challenge lies in ensuring that security policies, while effective, do not become an impediment to legitimate business operations or introduce unnecessary complexity that could lead to misconfigurations or vulnerabilities. The governance review highlights a potential disconnect between security posture and operational efficiency, requiring a strategic approach to process optimization rather than a reactive, purely technical fix. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and collaborative process of identifying security control inefficiencies, analyzing their impact on operations, and developing streamlined, yet secure, alternatives. This aligns with best practices in security governance, which emphasize continuous improvement and adaptation. By engaging stakeholders from both security and operation, the organization can ensure that proposed changes are technically sound, operationally feasible, and aligned with business objectives. This proactive and integrated approach minimizes disruption, enhances security effectiveness, and fosters a culture of shared responsibility for security. It also implicitly supports the principles of risk management by ensuring that security controls are proportionate to the identified risks and do not impose undue burdens. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing a blanket policy of disabling security controls without proper risk assessment or alternative mitigation strategies is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It directly contravenes the principle of due diligence in security, which mandates a proactive and risk-informed approach. Such an action would expose the organization to unacceptable levels of risk, potentially violating data protection regulations, e.g., if sensitive data is compromised and industry-specific compliance standards. It demonstrates a lack of professional judgment and a disregard for the organization's security posture. Focusing solely on technical solutions without considering operational impact can lead to solutions that are difficult to implement, maintain, or that create new security gaps. This approach fails to address the root cause of the inefficiency and can result in a suboptimal security posture. It also neglects the collaborative aspect of security, which is crucial for long-term success. Ignoring the governance review's findings and continuing with existing, inefficient processes is a failure to address identified risks and operational bottlenecks. This can lead to a gradual erosion of security effectiveness, increased operational costs, and a failure to adapt to evolving threats. It demonstrates a lack of commitment to continuous improvement and a passive acceptance of suboptimal security practices. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a situation should adopt a structured decision-making process. First, thoroughly understand the findings of the governance review and the specific inefficiencies identified. Second, engage with all relevant stakeholders, including security teams, IT operations, and business unit representatives, to gather comprehensive insights into the impact of current processes. Third, conduct a risk assessment for each identified inefficiency, evaluating the potential impact of both maintaining the status quo and implementing changes. Fourth, explore and evaluate potential solutions, prioritizing those that offer a balance of enhanced security, improved operational efficiency, and minimal disruption. Finally, develop a phased implementation plan with clear metrics for success and a feedback loop for continuous monitoring and adjustment. This approach ensures that decisions are data-driven, collaborative, and aligned with the organization's overall strategic objectives and risk appetite. Question 16. Stakeholder feedback indicates that recent network security policy updates, designed to enhance intrusion prevention, are significantly impeding the ability of the system administration team to perform routine maintenance and troubleshooting tasks, leading to increased delays and frustration. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation while maintaining a strong security posture? Option A. Implement the security policy strictly as recommended by the vendor, assuming their expertise will cover all potential operational impacts, and instruct the system administration team to adapt their workflows accordingly. Option B. Prioritize the system administration team's immediate operational needs by temporarily disabling certain security features that are causing the most significant delays, with a plan to re-enable them once operational backlogs are cleared. Option C. Conduct a joint review session with the system administration team to understand their specific operational challenges and collaboratively refine the security policies to incorporate necessary administrative exceptions or adjustments, ensuring these exceptions are documented and monitored. Option D. Immediately revert to the previous, less restrictive security policies to alleviate the operational burden and address the feedback, deferring any further security enhancements until a later, less critical period. The correct answer is C. Conduct a joint review session with the system administration team to understand their specific operational challenges and collaboratively refine the security policies to incorporate necessary administrative exceptions or adjustments, ensuring these exceptions are documented and monitored. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational demands of system administrators. The core of the challenge lies in the potential for overly restrictive security policies to hinder legitimate administrative tasks, leading to workarounds that can introduce vulnerabilities. Careful judgment is required to ensure that security measures are effective without being unduly burdensome. The correct approach, which involves a collaborative review and iterative refinement of security policies with the system administration team, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the principles of secure system design and implementation, emphasizing that security should be an integrated part of the operational environment, not an impediment to it. By involving stakeholders, the security team can gain a deeper understanding of operational needs and tailor security controls accordingly. This proactive engagement fosters trust and ensures that security policies are practical and sustainable, thereby reducing the likelihood of noncompliance or the development of insecure workarounds. This approach also implicitly supports the principle of least privilege, ensuring that administrative access is granted only as necessary and with appropriate oversight. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on implementing the strictest possible security controls without considering operational impact is professionally unacceptable. This can lead to system administrators bypassing security measures to perform their duties, creating shadow IT or unauthorized access points. Such actions represent a failure to adhere to established security protocols and can expose the organization to significant risks, potentially violating internal security policies and even regulatory requirements if data protection is compromised. Another incorrect approach, which involves implementing security controls based on vendor recommendations without validation or customization for the specific organizational environment, is also professionally flawed. While vendor recommendations are a starting point, they may not account for the unique configurations, workflows, or threat landscape of a particular organization. Relying solely on these without critical evaluation can result in either insufficient security or overly restrictive policies that hinder operations, leading to the same risks of workarounds and noncompliance. A third incorrect approach, which is to delay the implementation of necessary security controls due to ongoing operational concerns without a clear plan for their eventual deployment, is professionally irresponsible. This creates a window of vulnerability that attackers can exploit. While operational impact is a valid consideration, it should be managed through phased implementation, temporary compensating controls, and clear communication, rather than outright postponement of essential security measures. This delay can lead to breaches, data loss, and reputational damage, failing to meet the organization's duty of care in protecting its assets and data. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment, stakeholder engagement, and a phased implementation strategy. Security professionals must first understand the business and operational context, identify potential threats and vulnerabilities, and then design security controls that effectively mitigate these risks. Crucially, they must collaborate with operational teams to ensure that these controls are practical and sustainable. When conflicts arise, a process of negotiation, compromise, and clear communication is essential, always prioritizing the overall security posture of the organization while minimizing disruption. Question 17. Risk assessment procedures indicate that the current incident response process is experiencing significant delays in threat containment due to an overwhelming volume of low-fidelity alerts and a lack of clear escalation paths, impacting the organization's ability to meet its service-level agreements for security incident resolution. Which of the following approaches would best optimize this security process? Option A. Conduct a series of workshops with the security team to brainstorm potential solutions, relying primarily on their collective experience and intuition to identify areas for improvement. Option B. Deploy a new, advanced security information and event management SIEM solution without a comprehensive plan for integration, data normalization, or staff retraining. Option C. Implement a tiered alert prioritization system based on threat intelligence feeds and asset criticality, coupled with automated initial triage for common alert types to reduce manual review time and refine escalation procedures based on incident severity and impact. Option D. Increase the frequency of all security scans and log reviews to capture more potential indicators of compromise, regardless of current processing capacity. The correct answer is C. Implement a tiered alert prioritization system based on threat intelligence feeds and asset criticality, coupled with automated initial triage for common alert types to reduce manual review time and refine escalation procedures based on incident severity and impact. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational demands of a dynamic business environment. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that security processes, particularly those related to incident response and vulnerability management, remain effective and efficient without becoming a bottleneck to legitimate business operations. The CCNA Security Implementing Cisco Network Security exam emphasizes practical application of security principles, and this question tests the understanding of how to optimize security processes in a real-world context, adhering to best practices and implied regulatory compliance for data protection and system integrity. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven methodology for improving security processes. By focusing on identifying bottlenecks through metrics and then implementing targeted, measurable improvements, it ensures that resources are allocated effectively and that the impact of changes can be objectively assessed. This aligns with the principles of continuous improvement and risk management, which are fundamental to maintaining a secure and compliant network infrastructure. The implied regulatory framework for network security in a U.S. context would necessitate demonstrable due diligence in protecting sensitive data and systems, which is best achieved through optimized and auditable security processes. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on increasing the frequency of security scans without addressing the underlying issues of alert fatigue or inefficient remediation workflows would lead to wasted resources and potentially overlook critical threats amidst the noise. This could be seen as a failure in due diligence, as it doesn't demonstrate a thoughtful or effective use of security tools and personnel, potentially violating principles of reasonable security measures expected under regulations like HIPAA or PCI DSS if applicable. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing new, complex security technologies without a clear understanding of their integration into existing workflows or without adequate training for staff would likely create more problems than it solves. This could result in misconfigurations, increased operational overhead, and a false sense of security, which is professionally unacceptable and could lead to regulatory scrutiny for failing to implement security controls effectively. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few individuals to drive process changes, rather than objective data, lacks the rigor required for effective security management. This can lead to misdirected efforts, missed opportunities for improvement, and an inability to demonstrate the effectiveness of security investments, which is a significant professional failing and could be problematic from a compliance perspective where demonstrable risk mitigation is required. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a cyclical approach. First, clearly define the current state of the security process using quantifiable metrics. Second, identify specific areas for improvement based on data analysis and risk assessment. Third, design and implement targeted solutions, ensuring they are integrated with existing workflows and that staff are adequately trained. Fourth, measure the impact of these changes and iterate as necessary. This data-driven, iterative process ensures that security operations are both effective and efficient, meeting both security objectives and business needs. Question 18. The assessment process reveals that network performance has degraded significantly following recent security policy updates, leading to user complaints and potential operational disruptions. Which of the following approaches would best address this situation while maintaining a strong security posture? Option A. Conduct a thorough analysis of network traffic patterns and security event logs to identify specific security controls that are causing performance bottlenecks, and then implement targeted optimizations or policy adjustments based on this data. Option B. Rely solely on user feedback regarding perceived slowness to identify and adjust security policies without further technical investigation. Option C. Randomly disable various security features across the network until performance improves to an acceptable level, then re-enable them one by one to identify the culprit. Option D. Increase the density of security controls in areas experiencing performance issues, assuming that more security will inherently resolve the problem. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough analysis of network traffic patterns and security event logs to identify specific security controls that are causing performance bottlenecks, and then implement targeted optimizations or policy adjustments based on this data. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in network security, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational demands of a dynamic IT environment. Specifically, the scenario highlights the tension between implementing comprehensive security policies and ensuring that these policies do not unduly hinder legitimate business operations or introduce unnecessary complexity. This requires a nuanced understanding of risk management, where security measures are proportionate to the identified threats and vulnerabilities and are implemented in a way that is both effective and efficient. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and data-driven methodology for security policy optimization. By leveraging network monitoring tools and performance metrics, security professionals can identify specific areas where security controls are either over-engineered, underperforming, or causing unintended bottlenecks. This allows for targeted adjustments that enhance security posture without compromising operational efficiency. This aligns with the principles of responsible IT governance, which mandate that security measures are effective, efficient, and aligned with business objectives. In the context of U.S. regulations, this approach supports compliance with frameworks like NIST Cybersecurity Framework, which emphasizes continuous monitoring and improvement of security practices. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on increasing security control density without assessing impact would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to a situation where the network becomes overly complex and difficult to manage, increasing the likelihood of misconfigurations and security vulnerabilities. Ethically, it fails to consider the impact on users and business operations, potentially leading to reduced productivity and frustration. From a regulatory perspective, while seemingly increasing security, it could violate principles of proportionality and efficiency expected in IT security management under U.S. guidelines. Another incorrect approach that involves randomly disabling security features to improve performance is equally unacceptable. This is a direct violation of security best practices and regulatory requirements. It introduces significant vulnerabilities, exposing the network to known and unknown threats. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the organization's security and the data it protects. This would be a clear failure to meet the due diligence expected under U.S. cybersecurity laws and standards, potentially leading to severe consequences in the event of a breach. A third incorrect approach that relies solely on anecdotal user feedback without objective data analysis is also professionally flawed. While user feedback is valuable, it can be subjective and may not accurately reflect the root cause of performance issues or the true security posture. Relying on such feedback without empirical evidence can lead to misinformed decisions, potentially weakening security or failing to address actual problems. This approach lacks the rigor required for effective security management and could lead to non-compliance with data protection regulations that require a demonstrable and evidence-based security strategy. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a continuous cycle of assessment, implementation, monitoring, and refinement. This includes 1. Clearly defining security objectives and operational requirements. 2. Utilizing network monitoring and analysis tools to gather objective data on performance and security events. 3. Prioritizing security improvements based on risk assessment and potential impact. 4. Implementing changes in a controlled and phased manner with thorough testing. 5. continuously monitoring the effectiveness of implemented controls and their impact on operations. 6. Regularly reviewing and updating security policies and configurations based on evolving threats, technologies, and business needs. This iterative and data-driven approach ensures that security measures are both effective and efficient, aligning with professional standards and regulatory expectations. Question 19. Stakeholder feedback indicates that recent network security enhancements are causing significant delays in critical business operations and are perceived as overly restrictive by end users. The IT security team is tasked with optimizing the implementation of these security measures to improve both operational efficiency and user experience, while ensuring continued compliance with established security policies and best practices. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation? Option A. Immediately roll back the most disruptive security controls to alleviate user complaints and defer a full review of their necessity and impact until a later, less critical period. Option B. Focus solely on technical solutions to speed up the security processes without considering user training or the potential for operational workflow adjustments. Option C. Deploy the most advanced security features available across the entire network simultaneously to ensure maximum protection and address user performance issues as they arise. Option D. Implement security controls in a phased manner, conducting thorough testing and providing comprehensive user training at each stage to ensure smooth adoption and minimize disruption. The correct answer is D. Implement security controls in a phased manner, conducting thorough testing and providing comprehensive user training at each stage to ensure smooth adoption and minimize disruption. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in network security implementation, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational demands of network performance and user accessibility. The professional challenge lies in interpreting stakeholder feedback, which often reflects immediate pain points rather than a comprehensive understanding of security principles. Careful judgment is required to translate these concerns into actionable security improvements that align with established best practices and regulatory expectations without compromising the network's integrity or usability. The correct approach, focusing on a phased implementation of security controls with thorough testing and user training, represents best professional practice. This method acknowledges that security is an ongoing process, not a one-time deployment. It prioritizes minimizing disruption by introducing changes incrementally, allowing for validation at each stage. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and defense in depth, fundamental to secure network design. Furthermore, proactive user training addresses the human element, a critical factor in security effectiveness, and helps mitigate potential resistance or accidental breaches. This approach is ethically sound as it aims to protect both the organization's assets and its users' data, while adhering to the spirit of security regulations that mandate reasonable security measures. An incorrect approach that bypasses or significantly delays essential security controls in response to immediate user complaints, without a clear plan for their eventual implementation, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to vulnerabilities that expose sensitive data, violating data protection regulations, and potentially incurring severe penalties. It also demonstrates a failure to uphold the professional duty of care to protect the organization's information assets. Another incorrect approach, such as implementing complex security measures without adequate user training or support, can lead to user frustration, workarounds that undermine security, and an overall reduction in operational efficiency. This is ethically questionable as it fails to adequately consider the impact on end users and can inadvertently create security risks. Finally, a reactive approach that only addresses security issues after a breach occurs, rather than proactively implementing preventative measures, is a clear failure to meet regulatory requirements for due diligence and demonstrates poor professional judgment, as it prioritizes damage control over prevention. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough assessment of stakeholder feedback, categorizing concerns by their potential security impact and operational urgency. This should be followed by an evaluation against established security frameworks and relevant regulations. The next step involves designing a security strategy that prioritizes controls based on risk, implements them in a phased manner, and includes comprehensive testing and user education. Continuous monitoring and adaptation are crucial to ensure the ongoing effectiveness of security measures. Question 20. The performance metrics show a significant increase in packet loss and elevated CPU utilization on security appliances, leading to intermittent application unresponsiveness. Which of the following actions is the most appropriate initial step to address these performance issues while maintaining security integrity? Option A. Roll back recent network configuration changes without reviewing their potential impact on security policies. Option B. Immediately disable the intrusion prevention system, IPS, to reduce the load on security appliances and restore application performance. Option C. Analyze security event logs and traffic patterns to identify any anomalous or resource-intensive security-related activities that might be contributing to the performance degradation. Option D. Increase the bandwidth allocated to the security appliances without investigating the underlying cause of the high CPU utilization. Correct answer is C. Analyze security event logs and traffic patterns to identify any anomalous or resource-intensive security-related activities that might be contributing to the performance degradation. Explanation. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in network latency and a degradation in application response times across critical business systems. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts business operations and user productivity, potentially leading to financial losses and reputational damage. The network administrator must identify the root cause of these performance issues and implement effective solutions without compromising security or introducing new vulnerabilities. The urgency of the situation demands a systematic and informed approach, balancing immediate remediation with long-term stability and compliance. The correct approach involves a methodical investigation of network traffic patterns, device configurations, and resource utilization. This includes analyzing logs for security events that might be consuming excessive bandwidth or processing power, such as unauthorized scanning or denial of service attempts. Furthermore, it requires correlating these findings with known security policies and best practices to ensure that any proposed solutions align with the organization's security posture and regulatory requirements. For instance, if the analysis points to an intrusion detection system, IDs, generating a high volume of alerts due to misconfiguration, the professional practice is to tune the IDS rules to reduce false positives while maintaining effective threat detection. This aligns with the principle of maintaining a robust security posture while optimizing performance, a key tenet in network security implementation. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disable security features like firewalls or intrusion prevention systems, IPS, to alleviate performance issues. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it directly compromises the organization's security, leaving it vulnerable to attacks. Such an action would violate the duty of care to protect organizational assets and sensitive data, potentially leading to breaches that have severe legal and financial repercussions. Another incorrect approach is to implement broad, unverified changes to network configurations without understanding their impact on security. This could inadvertently create new security holes or disrupt critical services, demonstrating a lack of due diligence and professional responsibility. Professionals should approach such situations by first establishing a baseline of normal network performance. Then, they should systematically analyze the observed deviations, correlating performance degradation with potential security-related causes. This involves leveraging monitoring tools, security logs, and configuration data. The decision-making process should prioritize solutions that address the root cause while maintaining or enhancing the security posture. If a security control is identified as a performance bottleneck, the focus should be on optimizing its configuration or resource allocation rather than disabling it. Collaboration with application owners and other IT teams is also crucial to ensure a holistic understanding and resolution.